Good afternoon, everybody. We are super delighted to have you here on Tuesday, the 7th of June. This is our fourth Tuesday talk that we are doing this year. And I think at this stage, we are polling in at our highest interest rate as well. We have a really good good number of people wanting to join us on this talk and to meet Elza in person as well. And I think it's just come at the most perfect timing since Elza was not, or the Congo Conservation Company was at neither Indaba nor at We Are Africa, because Elza has actually been extremely busy over the last few weeks, traveling out into the Congo, checking on the camps and looking at new developments that are going to be taking place. And most excitingly, getting ready for this talk. So we've got lots of new things to be sharing with you, which we're so super excited about. And the last time that I was actually in the Congo was my last trip before lockdown. And I must say, of all the things that one could do just before having to go into a long time of travel isolation, this was one of the most fantastic trips that I've done. And I've also been really fortunate enough to have gone to Odzala and to Sangha on about 5 different trips throughout the years. So it's one of our most loved experiences in Classic Portfolio. It's one of the destinations that we are extremely proud to be working with. And what I absolutely love about this area as well is that it's an all-girl team over here. Everybody knows that Classics, excepting for Anton, who we love dearly, is one of our few men in the team. But when it comes to the Congo, this wild and woolly destination, we've got Elza, who's a female, the CEO. We've got Karen on the ground in Brazzaville, who's our Chief Operating Officer. Magda, who is the primatologist, also a girl team on the side. So it really does run with a lot of female power, not to forget, of course, that we also have Sabine Plattner and her daughter Tina, who are the philanthropist and the drive and the force behind everything that we are doing here. So I'm delighted to welcome you, Elza, and say thank you to everybody for joining us today as well. So just to give you a quick overview as to where we are and what we're going to be discussing today, just to remember that we've got Odzala Discovery Camps, which is in the Odzala Cacao National Park on this side over here. We are in the Republic of Congo, just to remind you of that, next door to the larger cousin over here, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we have as well Sangha Eco Lodge, which is up in the Central African Republic. So you just move from Odzala, where we've got 3 camps, you go up to Sangha in the Zanga Bay, which is in the CAR. Just to give you a bit of a close-up screen on this side, in Odzala, there is Monbonga Camp, which is actually a concession just outside Odzala. We then move into Odzala Cacao National Park, where you have Mboko and Lango. And then moving up into Zanga area, we have Zanga Lodge, which is up here near the Zanga Special Reserve area. So 4 unique camps and locations, and the only rainforest discoveries in the Congo Basin, and one of the most extraordinary and sublimely fantastic experiences that you can have across Africa. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Elza, who's going to be joining me and actually doing most of the talking, so you don't need to listen to my voice rattling on. But before I hand over to Elza, I want to remind you, and one of the things you need to be thinking about, please, as we're discussing this, is how to sell the destination. Guys, we all have a responsibility to make these far-flung destinations a success in Africa. Elza and the team on the ground are putting their effort in to make sure that the guest operation and the guest experiences are absolutely perfect and that everything runs from a compliance point of view. The camps are perfect and all those things working. On our side, we totally invested into the sales and marketing side of it. We need you as our trade partners to be here selling the destination. We need the beds from you. We need the business from you. And on that side, the top tip for selling this area is actually group travel. And it is one of the most wonderful experiences to do as a group. And just it works well for the company as well, for the Congo Conservation Company. When you come with less than 4 people, we accept them happily, we'll take anybody, but it does become a little bit tricky because the operational costs are so high. So the optimal number of a group is 8 and above. The smallest group size that really starts working is 4 people, and the largest group size that we can take is 12 people. So we're not talking masses of groups over here, but we are looking at a nice group size. The trade partners that we have who have sold this destination successfully are the ones that have actually taken out 2 or 3 group departures in a year, way in advance, and then being proactive in selling that. We work with them in terms of the flexibility in holding that space for them, but that really does work well. So we really want to focus in on how you can sell this destination and looking at the group size of travel as well. So then moving on to the first question I have to ask, because we want to get a gauge out of everybody that is with us today, who has successfully sold or quoted on the Congo Conservation Company to date? So here goes my first question, if I can just find the button to launch this poll. So I'm going to give you a few minutes or just a few seconds to answer those questions, to answer these questions. Oh, we're getting the never quoted is actually raising the stakes at the moment. That's being quite high. I'll give you a little bit longer, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer this. We're just waiting to see, and I'm ending the poll now. And the results of that are that most of the people, almost 60% of our attendees listening today, have never quoted the Congo Conservation Company. 20% of you have quoted but not converted, and 22% have successfully sold. So we know quite clearly that we have quite a lot of work to do today to get more of you to start selling this destination, because that's what we need to make it a success going forward. So I'm going to hand over to Elza in a moment, but just before I do, I wanted you to really think about what makes this area so special and absolutely unique. It really, if you think you know Africa, and I can go back to the first time that I went, I've been a person that has traveled extensively across Southern Africa and East Africa. I really did think I knew Africa relatively well until I went west, and I realized there's a whole part of Africa I'd never discovered, I'd never dreamed of at all. It was wet, it was green everywhere. It was the most immersive and different experience that you could ever have imagined. So today I really want us to concentrate on this totally different life-altering experience and a totally different perspective of what a safari in Africa can be about. Elza, over to you to discuss the mission and where we are going with the new developments and the current developments taking place at Odzala.
Right. Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. Hello to everybody. Thank you for joining and for just being open to hearing about what we do. We know that there are some people that have maybe, well, never sold or quoted on the Congo, others that have done so. So we're going to try and pitch today sort of quite widely to explain Congo Conservation Company and what we do to people sort of listening in for the first time, as well as trying to give some new nuggets of gold to those that know Congo Conservation Company and Odzala. So it really started with a bit of a love affair about 15 years ago when Sabina Plattner, our founder, fell in love with the forests in the Republic of Congo. And she wanted to do something to preserve them, to conserve them for future generations. And I think, as with everywhere in the world, the forest is under pressure. There's a lot of mining going on, some of it legal, some of it illegal around the park areas. Unsustainable logging is a problem, poaching, hunting. And Sabina wanted to do something that would be sustainable. Just having the parks and not doing anything with them doesn't make them sustainable. You need some economic activity to attach to it. And that's where ecotourism comes in. It offers employment to the people around the park. It gives them the reason to not hunt or poach. So it offers a direct economic benefit to the people around, to the communities around the park, as well as to the government in terms of tourism taxes, income tax. And it's just a way that we can make the parks work in the longer term and benefit the people around them. So for us, our mission and vision is really to inspire and enable guardians of the forest for generations to come. We speak not only of our guests that come. We would love for everyone who comes to be as touched and in love as we are with the Congo, but also for our employees, for our communities, and for Congolese government to have that same vision so that we can really preserve and conserve the forest. What we're also seeing is quite a nice secondary economy that starts to develop in the villages. So people have realized, well, if they have a little restaurant or a little bar, then people come in. And so it's not only the direct benefit to the people that work in and around the park, but also sort of a secondary economy. Also, we encourage, the making of curios and that sort of thing. So we're very excited about the pioneering role that CCC is playing in terms of making that happen.
Great, thank you, Elza. So do you want to go into a bit of detail on where you are operating and where the camps are located as well?
Yes, so we're actually incredibly lucky to be working with probably the three biggest names in conservation in terms of the park management units that we work with. So in Odzala National Park, we work with African Parks. So they would be managing the eco guards and everything around protecting our product and the biodiversity. You're going to hear about the two new camps we're building in Ndoki National Park, and there we're working in very close collaboration with WCS. And in Zangasanga's protected areas that are managed by WWF, we work with Ross Cassidy, with Sanga Lodge, and we'll just discuss in more detail how we facilitate entry into those areas as well. So you can see on the map, Odzala National Park is about 750 kilometers north of Brazzaville. So you could drive there. It would take at least 14 hours. And that's why due to a lack of sort of governmental infrastructure, we actually have our own plane to get people from Brazzaville to Odzala National Park. We're going to talk about the access to the other parks as we go along, but you can see there's a little airstrip just a bit further northeast at Cabo. So that's where we would fly people traveling to Sanga Lodge. And that's also the gateway to Ndoki National Park. So for us, a lodge development into Ndoki National Park also made complete sense because it's actually already on our existing circuit. And it would mean that we can leverage more volumes onto the existing flights that we have and not have to incur additional costs for that.
Great. Thanks, Elza. I was going to pose the next question to everybody before we go into all the details. One of the biggest things we get is that people saying, oh, it's a difficult place to sell. And as we saw now today, we've got almost 60% of our participants not having sold this destination. So the question I'd like to ask you now is why you haven't sold it and how best to sell it going forward. So I'm going to pose you the next question now. And it's to launch our poll and to what are the greatest obstacles you have in selling this destination. I'm going to again give you a few seconds to answer this, and this is a multiple choice, so you can add in some different things as well. But please, we really do need you to be honest about this and give us your feedback. So read through the things. So I've got too adventurous for my client base. You've got the fear of the critters and the bugs, which they're not that many of, I just have to say, actually. General fear about the Congo and confusion with the DRC. We find that one of the biggest things is everybody gets confused about these two Congos. We've not yet had a demand for a rainforest safari, and I did write in there not yet because we're expecting you will have a demand. You're not comfortable in promoting it until you've been yourself, which we do understand, but we do have lots of people coming for educationals and we don't get much business. So we need to make sure everybody comes and sends us lots of business, or no issues, you're selling with absolute confidence at this stage as well. So I'm going to give you another few more seconds. I can see some people are still, the dials are still moving. And then I'm going to share with you the results in a moment. And I'm not surprised at all by what I'm seeing on this side. I'm quite excited to share it with you at the moment. Okay, I'm going to be ending the poll now. Ending the poll. And to share the results, well, actually, what we most expected is people are a general fear about the Congo and the confusion with the DRC. It is one of the biggest obstacles we have, but at the same time, it's one of the most exciting things to say that you've been to the Congo Basin. And the second answer over there was actually you're not comfortable promoting it until you've been yourselves. So we've got an idea for that. Don't worry on that side at all. And then third in from that was not yet enough demand for a rainforest safari. And then I'm very happy to see that 18% of those are listening today have had no issues and are selling this with confidence. Just in saying that, I have to say this year, 2022, is actually looking to be one of our most, one of our best years in terms of finance for the Congo Conservation Company. Things are really looking good. We've got a great, strong forward book of bookings. We can definitely do with some more, but business is picking up, and it's been amazing to see in this post-COVID world how people are looking for such a unique and wild destination. So I want to then just move on to the next few slides. I just want to reiterate over here, what we have done at Odzala, across Odzala Discovery Camps and the whole Congo Conservation Company, is make it simple for you to use and sell this destination. So we've got 3 different types of ways in which you can sell it. It's on a 7-night discovery, a 10-night discovery, or an 11-night. Everything is managed and arranged for you. Get the clients to Brazzaville, and the whole itinerary is done and organized, from meeting the clients at the airport, flying them up, all the accommodation, the gorilla treks, the boats, the kayaks, the walking, the driving, everything is absolutely included. And I do believe that the rates we are bringing in here are offering extremely good value. So the 7-night discovery starts at just over, well, almost $13,000 per person for 7 nights. And that includes 2 gorilla treks, and everything is included on that side. We then move on to the 10-night discovery, which is all predominantly at Odzala, in the Odzala area, which is 17,400. And that includes 3 gorilla treks. And then there is the 11-night Congo Basin discovery, which is one of the most popular of the trips. And that is both the Odzala camps as well as Sangha. It's an 11-night experience, including all your flights, boats, transfers, everything, and at just over $20,000 per person. Elza, over to you then in terms of the experiences and what else to be doing in this area.
Suzanne, I was wondering if we shouldn't just backtrack a little bit, given that the DRC versus Congo fear seems to be, I think maybe let's unpack that for those that haven't, that maybe don't know that the Republic of Congo is definitely not the DRC. So just to make a bit of a distinction, there is the Congo River flowing between the DRC and the Republic of Congo. Yeah, thanks for the map. So you'll see Kinshasa and Brazzaville are the 2 capital cities that are the closest to each other in the world. But they are worlds apart. Congo Brazzaville has a population of about 5.5 million people, mostly around Brazzaville, Pointe-Noire, and a bit in Wesso in the north, and then smaller villages checkered in between, whereas the DRC has a population of, I think, 89.8 million people. So Congo is a little gem. It is probably one of the safest African countries I've worked in, and I've been working in Congo, I was telling Suzanne, for 10 years now. Never had a single incident. I go running at 5 o'clock in the morning in Brazzaville. No one bats an eyelid. It's really, it's the one place you can party and take a taxi at 2 o'clock in the morning and you don't worry about it. You get home safely. I'm not saying be reckless. It's like any other place in the world, but just in terms of a general place of people that are warm and friendly and that are not, threatening, the Congo is wonderful. So I just wanted to make that point so that we can start really getting it in the minds of people that the Republic of Congo, Congo Basin, is not the DRC. We do not have militias. We do not have, strange illnesses and all of that gets associated with the DRC. So yeah, just moving on from there.
I mean, it's so interesting. I want to point out that Odzala is actually bordering onto Gabon versus Rwanda and Uganda, which border right onto the DRC.
Yeah,
where you are,
exactly.
The name the same, you are actually so far away from what people perceive about the negative side of the DRC, which is, geographically, it's worlds apart.
Yeah, I think we're about 1,600 kilometers away from the trouble areas of the DRC. To give you a notion, relative to, like you say, Rwanda, that's just across the border. So the fact that it's really just the name that seems to trigger people, and we can, I think we have something solid to fight those notions and go, no, it's not true. The Congo is not the DRC, and we can vouch for that.
Well, I think so many people have said to me, if we could just change the name of the country, it would be so much easier.
Rebrand it.
Exactly.
Congo needs to rebrand.
Exactly. Okay, well, while we are in the Republic of Congo, what experiences what are people going to be expecting over here, and how are we going to get people to convince their clients to sell this destination going forward?
I'm actually going to start with something that sounds really boring, Suzanne. For me, it's not about what to do. It's just about being. I think my favorite thing to do in the Congo is to stand still in the forest and see what comes to me. Because inevitably you're going to see the most incredible butterflies or little caterpillars or an insect you've never seen before, or bird life, or maybe you'll hear a little rustle in the trees and wonder if it's the colorless monkey, or maybe a putty-nosed monkey, or maybe, you know, we have 16 different primates in the forest alone. So I think what people need to understand is they're coming to an ecosystem that's probably on par with something like the Amazon, or it's not just about gorillas or elephants or what you do, but it's about being immersed in probably one of the most authentic experiences you still get on the African continent. And that ecosystem can show you the most wonderful things. On my last trip to Congo, which was basically last week, I saw 3 animals I'd never seen before in one day. A water chevrotin. So John, our concession manager, called me on the radio and he's like, come have a look, guys, this is amazing. There was a little galago, like a bush baby that had fallen out of a tree. And there was a potto. I never even knew they existed. We called him Harry Potter. On the, you know, that came and said hi to us at Ngaga, all within the same 24 hours. And I've been going to Odzala for 4 years. And all of a sudden in one day, I saw like a whole new array of animals I barely even had taken note of before. And I think for me, that's the wonder of Congo, and that forest, it keeps on showing you things, it keeps giving. So yes, the way you can discover it is incredibly immersive. We don't just put, you know, the whole thing of getting into a car and observing, you know, being on safari doesn't exist, because you are immersing, you are doing, you are walking through a forest where you wake up all 5 senses. It's not just about what you're seeing, it's about what you're smelling. It's about tasting a funny little fruit. It's about hearing the sounds and just feeling it all. That for me is Congo and what makes it special. So the fact that our rivers are safe makes it even more fun. You don't have to worry about getting munched by a Nile crocodile. So I swim in the rivers all the time. So, you know, you can swim, you can kayak. So yeah, that's why Congo is wonderful. And to get there, there's an Air France flight daily from Paris. You also get in via Addis Ababa. Ethiopian Airways connects, I think, many places in the world to Congo, to Brazzaville. You can also fly via Kigali. So we fly from Johannesburg either via Kigali or Addis. And then we have our own chartered or scheduled flights on Mondays and Thursdays. So that's what gets you from Brazzaville to Odzala National Park within sort of 2 hours. So that cuts down that 14 to 16 hour drive into a 2-hour flight, which makes access a lot easier. So that's our plane. She's called Olivia. And it's a Let 410 that's a 20-seater that we've converted into sort of maximum 14-seater, so that we can also take cargo, make sure people have fresh fruit and vegetables and meat at the lodges. So we also use the plane for that. And yeah, we also fly to Kaba, but I think we'll get there. Yeah, people often ask, what is the best time of year to come to Congo? And I can say with a clear conscience, all year round is great. So even when there's a bit more rain, you see different things. In the rainy season, you would see more birds on the ground going after the minerals, or more butterflies. In the dry season, the rivers are a bit lower. So your experience of the area will just, you know, you'll get a different experience, but I wouldn't say there's a good or bad. I think it's wonderful all year round. And we're able to accommodate up to 12 people. So it is quite exclusive, no more than 6 rooms per lodge in Gaga and Lango. In Boko, we have a couple more rooms, but we have 6 that are along the river. And those are the cabins that we prefer to use for guests, but we can accommodate a couple more people at Mboko if needs be. I think the one thing that we also just want to mention here is that all guests that travel into Odzala pay park fees and conservation fees and community fees that go directly to the Odzala Kukua Foundation, and they manage that, and that goes to the protection of the park. So every person that comes and travels to Odzala is making a contribution towards the park sustainability. The more people travel in, the more the parks don't have to look in the eyes of donors. And it just, you know, adds back into that story of economic viability and giving it a long-term sustainability. And we've said here, the park reaches financial sustainability with 21 guests per night, paying $150 per person per night. And we have capacity for much more than that. So we have all the infrastructure we need to be able to make those numbers so that the park can also be sustainable.
Is it on Monbonga Camp?
It's on Monbonga Camp. You'll see that Monbonga Camp is fully immersed in the forest. So it's an incredibly unique lodge in that all the rooms are immersed in the forest, and we have thousands of Western lowland gorilla families, or Western lowland gorillas that live in their families around the camp. So this is outside of the park. It's in the Nze concession. And what I love about it is there's also a lot of research activity happening. And we're having more and more students from the University of Brazzaville working with Magda Bermejo from Sabina Platinum African Charities. And they're doing the field work and the research. We currently have a student that's looking at the nutrition of the gorillas, and he can tell you so much about it. It's really fascinating. So at Monbonga, you would wake up in the mornings. There's no queuing for permit. It's you would be one of maximum 12 people going gorilla trekking with 3 different groups. So only 4 people per group. So it's extremely exclusive, and it's a lovely experience because you have your coffee and then you just start ambling to the forest, and you're in the forest as it wakes up, and you can hear, you know, the animals starting to wake up, the bird song, everything else. So it makes for an incredibly sort of organic and lovely trekking experience. For me, it's not about just observing the gorillas. For me, the fun part is finding them. So going with the Ba'aka tracker, he doesn't have a GPS. He reads the forest signs, listens out, and just observing the tracker, knowing what they're doing is just incredible. So yeah, Monbonga has 6 units, as we've said, and a lovely main deck area with a fire pit. So it's the perfect place to have your cocktail once you've done your trekking and adventures for the day. I just saw the question pop up if you need a certain fitness for the trekking. So I'm just going to answer that as I see it. We would recommend that you would need to be able to walk 2 to 3 hours comfortably. So yes, if you never walk and it's not something you do, it might be quite strenuous. But the forest is flat. It's not, we're not climbing mountains, so it's a relatively easy walk. But if the gorillas are on the move, or for whatever reason you need to be trekking a little bit faster, then we say the fitter you are, the more fun you're going to have. Then just to get back to Mboko, that is our Savannah Camp. So the lovely thing in Odzala is each camp has almost its own identity. Monbonga is a forest camp, and it's all about the research and the gorillas. Mboko Camp is an old research station. So if you look at this middle picture, it's not as much designed initially to have been a lodge. So it was converted from having been sort of an authentic park headquarters into a guest experience. And for me, it has the best of a lot of worlds. You have the savannah, so you can look out, and if you're lucky, you'll spot an elephant, or we see buffalo probably daily, hyenas. So there's a lot of sort of wild animal movement in the camp. It's unfenced. And then you have the guest units that are on a little river or in the forest. So you have forest rooms and you have river rooms. And the best thing about it is in this little river that flows past the camp, we've put a deck area where people can just relax, and the river is cool enough or just nice to swim in. There are no crocs around. So it's really a lovely place to just relax after a long day, have a gin and tonic, and enjoy the surroundings. I think we can go to the next slide, Suzanne. So Mboko is also the lodge from which all our river activities happen. So that's where we take people kayaking, and also on a boat sunset cruise. So those are all things that immerse you in a completely different environment to what you would have had in the forest. So it really gives you the best of both. Then moving on to Lango. Lango for me is all about observation and probably photography as well. It's just an amazing place. The bay or saline area in front of the deck attracts animals that are looking for minerals. So we're actually saying, in the savanna areas, you get watering holes where animals need to come and drink water. In the Congo, there's water everywhere, but here they come for the minerals. So at nighttime, especially, there are lots of elephants in the bay. You would hear them trumpet and make noise. During the day, you might see elephants, bongo, if you're lucky, other antelope, buffalo, and just in the rainy seasons, that's when you get the birds. And I've seen flocks of African grey parrots in their hundreds that come and land in the bay. So it really is exquisite. We can't guarantee it. You have to be lucky, but I would say that's once in a lifetime if you do get to see that. Okay, then moving on to Sangha Lodge, CCC supports Rod and Tamar Cassidy that own and manage Sangha Lodge in Central African Republic. And we found a way to combine it that people that come into Congo and visit Odzala also get to experience Sangha Lodge without having to travel through Bangui. Because one big problem is often there are travel advisories that say don't go into Car because there's maybe some uncertainty or political shenanigans in Bangui. So we found a way where you can travel from Odzala, fly to Cabo, which is still within the Republic of Congo and the gateway to Noabali and Durkee National Park. And then from Cabo, there's a boat. And it's Rod's boat that would come and get you in Cabo and take you to Sangha Lodge. So I'm just finding my way on there. So Sangha Lodge is by the Zanga Special Reserve, and that is run by WWF. And that's where you would get to see the world famous Zanga Bai. So they offer also gorilla trekking activities. And I think there's manga bee tracking. I haven't personally done that, but it also sounds like quite a fun experience. So there's Suzanne on the boat. I think we just need a caution. I think that the official version is that the boat takes 4 hours, but in the dry season, when there's less rain and the river is low, you might take longer. It can, I think, take up to 7 hours. So just bear in mind, the journey is not a guaranteed 4 hours, but it's fun nonetheless. I love the Sangha River because the really cool thing about it is when you're on it, you have Congo to the right and you have Cameroon to the left and you have Car in front of you. So it's almost like this, I say that it's the Caprivi of the Congo Basin. And we've been very reckless and swum across into Cameroon and done all sorts of silly things, but it's good fun.
I have to say, Elza, I totally agree. I think one of the best reasons, one of the many good reasons rather, for going up to Sangha is that boat journey. It is just, you feel as though you have fallen off the edge of the world. It is the most remote and wild thing that you could ever do, but it is the fabulous scenery, amazing people along the line, along the river as well. You stop in at these little, checkpoints, and you different people that you meet along the way, and your passport gets stamped here, and something else gets done there, and it's just, you can't believe how efficient this life in the back of Africa is. It's quite extraordinary, and just wonderful to see life going on. And I remember the first time going up, we'd been traveling up for about 4 hours up the river, and the next thing, in the middle of nowhere, we saw this little white church, and it's been painted now, I think, but this little missionary station. You're thinking, you could just imagine people going up here hundreds of years ago trying to save Africa or something like that, and how the missionaries might have moved out now and life is just going on in this own way. It's just quite the most amazing experience.
it's wonderful. And I think what I find amazing, you know, when you travel to other places, even in Africa, you start seeing like cell phone towers along the sides of rivers, and it's quite developed, and towns. Here, the forest just keeps going for kilometers and kilometers, where you might have an odd little fishing village, but for the rest, you know, the spread of humans is so limited. It's just nature in abundance, and it's wonderful. So just to talk about the offerings, Rod and Tamar have something that's very close to their hearts called the Pangolin Project. And that's where there are pangolins that need to be rehabilitated. They look after them and make sure they get released back into the wild. But they also have a whole educational program to try and get the villagers to not catch them in the first place. The last thing they want is for people to catch pangolins and then, you know, to try and get money for it. So it's a whole educational drive that goes along with that. And Tamar is incredibly passionate about her pangolins, and it's just the most wonderful thing if you get to see one of them. I got to meet Mona last year, and I was very honored. So it's something that, it was my first pangolin, so it was very special to do it in that context. Zangabai is really the biggest congregation of forest elephants in the world. And you hear it before you smell it, before you see it. It's the trumpeting. As you walk up to Zangabai, you can hear something's going on. There's this immense elephant activity that's tangible. It's just the most incredible place. And you can spend hours. There's always something happening. And I mean, just look at the colors of the elephants. Some go and roll in dark mud, and others find a little white patch, and others are in like an ochre kind of color. It's wonderful. It's just the most fascinating place. And if you get to go with Rod and Tam, you're going to have to drag them away because they'll stay the whole day. And it's just really, really wonderful. So highly recommended.
Great. Then I just want to jump in and just go back to some of the cost aspects over here. And we've got quite a few questions, which Michelle's posting to me as well. So I just want to go through some of the aspects over here. So the 10-night Sangha discovery is just under 18,000 Rand, and that $18,000. And that includes absolutely everything in terms of the boat transfers, managing the logistics up the river in terms of your permits, your passport controls, all of those things, as well as the 11-night discovery is just over $20,000. Guys, I was going to say, I know, and the price came up as one of the reasons for possibly not being able to sell the Congo Basin. You have to realize, and Elza, I might be wrong in saying this, for every dollar that the client is spending on paying to be here, CCC is putting in a dollar as well. You are not paying the full cost of what it costs to operate over here. You are actually getting a subsidized holiday. And I know it is expensive. I'm not saying that spending 20 grand per person for 11 nights is not expensive, but it is exceptionally good value to be experiencing such a truly remote and wild destination. And there's nothing else here. There's nobody else to share operating costs with, share the flight costs with, or any of those things. So you really are getting one of the most unique experiences, and your holiday is being subsidized, which I think is an important aspect. And then just speaking about subsidization, we're actually offering you these extremely good group travel rates as well. And what we've done here with, which Elza worked on, is to try and incentivize you guys to sell this. You can choose what you want to sell it at. We're just dropping the net rates because it becomes more tangible and affordable for us to operate, for the CCC to operate, when we've got more people within a group. So when you're looking at under 4 people, you are getting a 20% flat commission, non-negotiable, okay? 20%, that's it. There's no DMC that isn't required. You're dealing directly with the Congo Conservation Company. When you give us a group of 4 or just over that, we will give you a 25% commission straight on that. So you can either incentivize your clients. When you get to a group of 8, you're getting a 30% reduction on the full rate. And then up to 12, you're getting a 32% reduction. On these groups as well, of 6 and over, you do get a better rate in terms of a private guide or somebody traveling, or a host for those groups as well. But you're either making more money, which you can do with absolute pleasure, or you incentivizing you to sell on and get these group rates in at a good price as well. Both of those work extremely well. and it provides really good value when we are able to sell it in a larger number going forward. Elza, the two questions that we have had coming up, which I think would be nice for you to answer, is the seasons. Is there any particular season to go? I mean, I always say it's wet, wetter, and wettest, but it's an all year round destination. But just, do you want to answer into that? And the second question, and I'm going to post the third poll question now as well, is just about COVID requirements as well.
Okay. We do see the season shifting, Suzanne. I think Congo, like anywhere else in the world, is starting to see a slight change in weather patterns. So please don't, say that this is cast in stone. It's indicative. But what we find, just speaking from, general trends, we have a short dry season, sort of January, February, and then it gets a bit wetter March, April, May, then it's drier again, June, July, August, September, and then October, November, December are a bit wetter. So that's just to give you an indication. I've had my most beautiful African grey parrot and butterfly sightings in October, November as the bigger rainy season, the small rainy season starts. So it's just hard to say. I've been all year round. I've never thought, oh my goodness, why did I come? This is a terrible time. I've had my most wonderful elephant sightings in the rain. The one time we went out on the river and we did a walk and we saw in the rain, less than 7 different groups of elephants. Because they were out and they're more comfortable when it rains. They can't smell you coming. They can't hear you coming. So, I would say I honestly can't say that. There's a best time of year to go. It's all every time of year will offer you something unique and different.
And I think what's also important to realize is, unlike in the savanna areas, when you have rain here, we tend to have thicker bush, and then it tends to reduce your sightings. In the rainforest, the foliage cover, the forest cover remains the same all year round. So, and the other thing is that, and because of that, your wildlife doesn't migrate and move either, because there's water all year round, and there's feeding all year round as well. So we don't have the seasonality in the rainforest in terms of thicker coverage. So there's less to see and there's less animals around. In the savannah, the elephants disappear in the rainy season because there's water to be found everywhere. Over here, the elephants still congregate around the same buys where they get their minerals. So the animal patterns and the bird patterns are very much the same. The thing that does change is the things like the insects. So the minute it rains, you tend to get more butterflies and those beautiful things. But otherwise, it generally is, I always say people generally very much the same. And we did just post our third question for today. How confident are you in selling this destination? I'm very happy with the results. I'm going to share them in a moment. And of the discoveries, which ones are you most likely to be selling as well? So I'm going to end the poll and share these results with you. And what I'm very delighted to see is that 5% of you are feeling very confident about selling this as a destination, which is great news. 35% a little bit unsure, and absolutely nobody is not confident about the destination at all, which is great. And then of the discoveries that you're going to be, that you've got over here, which are you going to be selling in the next 12 months? I was very specific about the next 12 months as well on this one. And we've got 45% who feel they're going to confidently and wanting to sell the 7-night Odzala discovery. And then again, 29% of you are one of the group departures hosted by one of our companies. So that's really great. And nobody said none of these. It's not suitable to our client base. So I'm delighted about that. Thank you very, very much. Elza, we're going to move on now just to some of the exciting new developments. And we've got quite a few people that have sold a lot in the Congo already, and we've got some very exciting things coming up. So I think what we're going to spend the last bit of this presentation on is discussing the new things and where we are going forward with the Congo Conservation Company.
Okay. That's probably what's pulling me into Congo the most at this stage. So I think just firstly, in terms of the packages and the preferential rates that are being offered, the offers you saw are for this year. So it's for bookings that are still for 2022. We'll look to offer something similar, maybe with a slight tweak in the rates for 2023. So to also drive the group bookings, because we're going to be closing Odzala, all 3 camps for further refurbishment as of September, and that's more from an interiors perspective. So we have very exciting news.
Sorry, just confirm, September 23, we're going to be closing the camp.
September 23. So we still have a good 14, 15 months before then. The reason for that is we are building 3 new camps in Odzala and Ndoki National Park, and our architect that's involved in the project is called Bill Bensley. He's done a lot of amazing work in other forest areas. So we've decided to move away from your normal safari experience in Africa and rather work with someone that understands the forest. So Bill does a lot of incredible work in Asia. So he's worked on, well, and elsewhere, but he's done beautiful lodges in Bali, for example. He's got a lodge called Chintamani Wild in Cambodia that's similar to Sabina. He self-funded to save that piece of forest. So there's also sort of a common understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And Bensley fell in love with Odzala, and he absolutely wants to also do something there, which is why we said, okay, we'll give, we'll plan for it, and next year September we'll close Odzala so that we can reopen our new Ndoki lodges and Odzala in Q1 of 2024. So there's a lot of planning that's happening currently, a lot of aligning things, but we're very excited about these new developments. Ndoki, we're doing Monbonga Camp, which is going to be on the Sanga River. So it's not far from Bomassa, which is where WCS has their base, and the village of Bomassa. But it's a beautiful concession that we're currently negotiating with the government. But it's going to be different because it's going to be on a big river, so similar to Sanga Lodge, and it will open to places such as Walibai and little buys around the back and other experiences. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Ndoki Camp is going to be a fully immersive forest lodge where you can get to by river. We were first looking at doing it sort of closer to Mondika Research Camp, but then the only way to get in would have been by hiking 9 kilometers, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. So we found a way to build a forest lodge that you can access all the way with the river, and it's just going to make the whole build process a lot more I think a lot easier and more effective. And then finally, we're working with WCS on the design of the Mbeli by Mirador. So I don't know if you've watched the Our Planet Jungle series, but the first 10 minutes of that is Mbeli Bay. And that's where Sir David Attenborough calls Mbeli Bay the last place on earth. It's just beautiful. It's absolutely pristine. And we want to offer very exclusive sleep out experiences at Mbeli Bay. So that's sort of part of the Ndoki circuit that we're developing. So all in conjunction with Bensley and his team. So we've had 2 site visits already, and the first designs have come out. So we're all very excited about this project.
And I think just to add in Mbeli Bay, which is the most extraordinary location, is actually an area where you get multiple gorilla families coming into this Bayer clearing. So you sit on a mirador, you just quietly watch life happening. So whether it be forest elephants coming in and then a gorilla family, giant forest hogs, forest buffalo, but it's this beautiful location, but you actually get to see lots of different gorilla families all coming in to feed and drink in the Bayer and get their minerals out of that area. So it's a beautiful location. So just to reiterate where these locations are, you've got Odzala in slightly south over here. We've got Sanga just in the Central African Republic, and then Mbali and Ndoki and the Sanga Special Reserve are all actually one large protected area, like the Masai Mara Serengeti. This is one area that extends across a national border boundary, and we've got the 3 camps taking place over here. So Elza, chat about the Mbali and Ndoki strategy.
Yeah, so we've had people say, why build more lodges in Congo if it's already quite hard? And it's really about a long-term strategy of developing Congo as a wonderful destination. Odzala Kukua National Park has so much to offer, but often people come and they're like, well, if we don't want to leave the country, if we want to do something else in Congo, what else can we do? And I mean, Bali and Ndoki is just absolutely pristine. It's never had tourism before, or any tourism developments inside the park. So it's a huge responsibility, but it's also just an incredible opportunity to offer, to widen the Congo experience and offer just so much more. So, you know, it fully aligns with Sabina Platner's vision of protecting the forest. So it's not now only the Odzala forest, but now it extends into Ndoki, developing the local communities. We are focusing heavily on making our lodges Congolese. We want Congolese people to work as guides, to work as managers. We're investing a lot into really developing ecotourism as an industry in Congo, and not only putting up a couple of lodges, but really to transform things in a very positive way. We're very lucky to be working with WCS. They have a lot of support from USAID, and USAID is actually one of the partners in this project. They're matching Sabina's investment in the project, and that's going to go towards park protection. And so it's a donation to the park to ensure that the park is well looked after and protected, so that we have the product offering from a tourism perspective. So it's a really wonderful partnership, also with the Ministry of Forestry, that, you know, we're excited to show, you know, how we can develop ecotourism and hopefully lead the way for others to follow. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, Suzanne. So just to give you a sense, Monbonga is on the river. So in the dry seasons, you have these lovely sandbanks that are perfect for sundowners. There's not a bug in sight. I don't know how they do it, but it's just, you sit on this on the sandbanks, have a little barbecue, swim in the river if you want to. So it's just absolutely beautiful. And what's exciting about Monbonga is they're little unexplored bays. And it was named after bongo. So apparently there are lots of bongos around. So that's a sort of a nice draw factor. I'm not making any promises, but the name didn't get its name for nothing.
Elza, and talking about swimming in the river, one of the questions we have, are there any concerns about swimming or trekking in the rivers? bilharzia, a crocodile or two, or etc. But generally, I mean, I know we both swim in those rivers happily, but just to answer that question about the safety of the water around.
Yeah, we've never had any instances of bilharzia in Sangha. I can't say we can guarantee everything, but I swim in it without a problem. I've never had an issue. And I think the area has slender snout crocodiles and dwarf crocodiles. We haven't had any Nile crocodile issues in these areas ever, well, that I know of. So hopefully it stays that way. You know, it's nature. Animals migrate, but to my best knowledge, it's not a problem.
And generally, I mean, any larger crocodile would only be found in the Sangha River. But when all the pictures that one sees about the wading that you do around Lango, and even in other areas here at Zangabai, that water is completely safe as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Yeah.
Clear,
it's so
not
clean
muddy.
and clear.
I mean, I'm sure you can drink it. I haven't drunk it before, but it's actually just beautiful, brown, fresh, clean river water with a white sandy base to it. So it's very nice to navigate around as well. So no, there's never, and actually I always thought that it was going to be muddy and dirty and all of those sort of things, but it's not that at all. It's actually lovely, beautiful water. And when it does get hot, and it's actually so refreshing to be in that water as well. You can kind of cool yourself down.
Yeah. And if you think about it, Suzanne, I mean, Odzala Kukua National Park is the size of Belgium, and there's no one living in it. It's huge, you know, so it's unpolluted. There's no one there. So that's, I think, what makes it so magical. You know, when you're on the river, you're the only person on this river for kilometers, and that's really quite authentic. I think people love that aspect. What we looking to do at Monbonga is to leverage from years of research that's been going on with habituated gorilla groups. So they are 3 habituated gorilla groups. So that will be quite complementary to the offering that we have at Ngaga, because it will allow our guests to do gorilla trekking in more than one location within Congo, which is really exciting. So yeah, that's the lodge location is going to be further north. It's going to be about a 5-kilometer walk from our lodge to get to Mondika, but the guerrilla roaming areas are sort of within that forest section. So I think your chances of encountering habituated groups are very high.
And actually, Elza, just looking at this picture makes me think about something as well. And having done both the mountain gorillas and the western lowland gorillas, the policy and the protocols that are taken here at both Ngaga and at Mondika are very much in line with the IUCN gorilla protocols. You stay your 7+ meters away from these gorillas. Even way before COVID entered this world, we were all wearing masks on each of the gorilla treks. You are not going to get as close as you do get when you see a mountain gorilla by any means, but you at the same time have got a much wilder, much freer experience of the gorillas. Another comment as well I'd say from a gorilla point of view is that they're much more arboreal. So they're climbing trees, they're a lot more active as well. They're moving around, they're not kind of like the big mountain guys that just sit there with that grumpy look on their faces. They're very different sort of personality types. And so I'd say these are almost the more agile cousins in the West, and they tend to move around a lot more. You go in for an hour as well on all the gorilla treks, but very often because the animals are moving, when you move out and you're not with them, they don't count that. So you move out, you go around, you get into a better angle, and then your time starts again. So the whole gorilla encounter can sometimes be, I've been out there for 2.5 hours sometimes with the gorillas, because you're moving into a different location, you're pulling out, you're getting into a different area. So it's, I think, a much more real and authentic experience from that point of view, and absolutely fantastic gorilla encounters. And then from here, we're moving on to Mbeli Bay, which Elza was telling us about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so you can see it's absolutely massive. I mean, the last 2 times I've been, so I went in March and I was again now in May, there were at least 2 silverbacks in the bay, one with a family, one was a lone male, elephants, sitatunga, lots of birds. It's just, and I think what we're looking to create there is a space where people can just be. You don't actually have to sit and observe the whole time. If you want to sit and read a book and glance up every now and again to see what's happening, you can do that. If you want to sip on a glass of wine and just have a chat quietly. So the idea is to create a space where guests can just be and relax for a number of hours, because that's often when you're going to get the best sightings, if you're able to spend time there, and even better if you can overnight, because then you hear the sounds, you'll hear the elephants splishing around in the little river. So it's really, really magical. And if you want a little hint, try a book at, when it's full moon. Then you're going to get value for money.
Absolutely. You should charge higher rates for full moon.
Yeah, double rates for full moon.
Yes.
The one thing that's really special about Ndoki is also these sort of very dark, clear rivers. So to get to Mbeli Bay, you have to just go for about half an hour in one of these little pirogues that the guys navigate masterfully on this tiny little river. And it's just the most epic experience. You're on this boat, you go for about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then it's a 45-minute walk, and then you're at Mbeli Bay. So it's really an easily accessible but very, very epic experience. I couldn't do it enough times. It's just amazing.
And then you get, I have to say, my favorite picture in this whole presentation today is this. This is Mbeli Bay, which I think sums the whole experience up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the same location as well, the elephants coming in. So, Elza, I think we're wrapping up now because we've done all the new things. But as we do that, I wanted to ask you some questions. And the thing we've got is we've got to do the good and the bad. But what are the 5 great...
Sure.
Because everyone thinks it's a challenging destination, but what are the 5 greatest challenges, and you're only allowed 5, you face operating in the Congo Basin?
I think I'm going to start with a recent one, Suzanne, that's sort of, that's been a bit of a curveball, but that's a fuel shortage. All of a sudden there was just no more fuel in Congo. So at least it alternated a bit. When there wasn't any more jet fuel, then at least there was diesel, so we could still move around in the bus. And then there was at least a bit of petrol, so the boats could still go. So we are stockpiling as much as we can, but I think I don't know if it's war related or what is causing it. But it is it has become something we've had to live with and manage very actively. And I'm not saying they might be the odd time that unfortunately we'd have to resort to, busing people up instead of flying if there is really no jet fuel. So we are stockpiling as much as we can, but it's a new challenge that we're having to manage. And I'd rather just be honest about it. It's not within our control, but we're doing our best to have plans B, C, and D in place so that our guests are inconvenienced as little as possible. I think something else that struck me that was challenging post-COVID was just supply of things like equipment. We thought we had certain timelines for our lodges to get reconstructed, and then all of a sudden you have a fuel shortage, meaning you can't get your wood, and you have equipment shortages in shops, and you can't get angle grinders and decking screws. I've never hunted more for decking screws in my life. So things like that. I think the physical environment is always a challenge. The forest will always try and take back where it is. So it's always wet, it's always raining, nothing ever dries out unless you can find a sunspot to dirt. So I think it's a sort of an opposite challenge to what you'd have in the savannah, just trying to fight the forest smells as they compound after a while. And I think finally there is a certain exciting challenge to being a pioneer of a new industry in a country that hasn't had something like ecotourism before. So it's already a relatively complex environment from a political and a compliance perspective. I mean, you're going to laugh, but our effective tax rate is 68%. If you do everything by the book and you pay all your employees' taxes and your business license tax and your withholding taxes and your VAT, and so it's not really it's not an easy environment. There's a lot to continuously navigate. But I'm actually going to turn that into a positive and say we never bored.
Well, but there we go. The greatest joys now. What are your 5 greatest joys?
I think one of my personal greatest joys is being Indiana Jones in the forest. The kind of explorations we've been doing in Ndoki, we've gone to places that I think even previous park directors had never been before, just trying to find this new lodge location. So that's just been so exciting and so wonderful. And to do it with a bunch of people that are sort of equally crazy, it's just it's been a lot of fun, but also very productive. And I think another positive is, despite the shortages and challenges and post-COVID issues, we did manage to reopen on the 20th of December, like we said we would. And I'm extremely grateful to my team. We have a wonderful team of people that work incredibly hard to make the impossible happen. I don't think we can fathom just how hard they are working. And currently, even with Lango, we've committed to a date and we are pulling out all the stops to not disappoint, despite fuel shortages and equipment shortages and decking screws that I can't find in shops. We're doing really what we can to, and bearing in mind, people are paying a lot of money to come and we want them to have the best experience. So from that perspective, huge thank you to the team. They are absolutely wonderful. And also to you, Suzanne, and your team for just the support through the past 2-3 years. It's been incredible. And just for me, I think another joy is seeing our people grow. I'm actually a spring chicken in the business. We've had Congolese people in our business for the past 10 years. We have one guy who used to be a poacher. He's from a hunting family. He became a camp hand. Now he's working in our kitchen. He's one of our cooks. And he's going on an exchange program to Fancourt at the end of the year to work in the kitchen there for 3 months and just get other exposure. So it's just so wonderful to see, our people get opportunities. And as we're growing ecotourism as an industry in Congo, everything that goes along with that, and seeing how it's changing people's lives. And I think Sabina can look back, from now 10 years ago and just also, enjoy seeing that despite the challenges, and it's really wonderful to see. And I think my final joy is that we don't have to do this alone. We've got wonderful people on the ground we work with. We're highly supported by the parks we work with, African Parks in Odzala, WCS, WWF, even Zanga. We have wonderful, guests that come and appreciate, and really, I mean, when a guest's face lights up and they like really get Congo and what it's about, it's just absolutely incredible. Even the Congolese government supports the ministries of tourism and environmental and forestry, with the new Ndoki project. So there's a lot of people in the mix with us, the embassies, USAID, the EU, that make us feel that we're not at this alone. And, above all, our shareholder and her daughter, Savannah and Tina, they've been wonderful. And it's just really wonderful. So those would be my joys.
Thank you, Elza. And I've actually just looked through the list of some of our attendees today, and there are lots of people here who have sold this destination and who've been hugely supportive in bringing photographic groups and different things in different ways of supporting us. So I just wanted to say to you, Elza, a massive thank you for today, for this enlightening discussion of everything to do with the Congo. I've got one more poll question that I want to ask everybody, and to all our trade partners that are here today as well. Thank you, really do thank you for the time that you've given us to learn about this destination. We are always on hand to support you in any way in terms of being able to sell the Congo going forward. And it's not that I'm being biased or anything like that, but it honestly is one of the most extraordinary destinations. You will never, ever doubt selling it to a guest. Our guest feedback is always just absolutely fantastic. And it's a place that just delights. Anybody that wants to go here has already got a slightly different outlook on life, and it really and truly does delight you. So we just asked today about, after hearing about these unique experiences, what are you most excited about sharing with your clients? The totally different perspective on African safari, the truly wild and immersive gorilla trekking, the rainforest habitats from the trees and the bayous and the rivers and the marshes, the wildlife discoveries found nowhere else, like the bongo and the lowland gorillas, the forest elephant, the giant forest hogs, the chimps. We haven't even discussed half of the amazing things you can find here. The insanely wonderful, and I'm looking at Andrew Beck, who's on our call today as well, insanely wonderful photographic opportunities, and then the most exciting new locations for small group travel. And honestly, guys, I think this is one of the most exciting destinations for small group travel. And as we mentioned earlier, it's one of the best ways to sell the destination as well. So we are here to help you with anything going forward in selling this. And I'm going to end the poll now. And our sharing results, our highest number of people were saying that it is the wildlife discoveries found nowhere else. And that really is what makes this one of the most unique perspectives on an African safari. So a very, very big thank you to everybody for joining us today. We will share a recording of this and a link to the live presentation. And we are, as I mentioned, we are always here on standby to help you selling this destination going forward. We can go through COVID regulations, which many of you have asked as well. We can discuss those things. We can discuss rates, net rates, access, all of the details in more detail on an individual basis. But thank you, everybody, and thank you very much to Elza as well.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, everyone.